Maybe just like halfway. Yeah, just so it's not in the shot. But yeah, not cutting all the air off. Make sure we're actually live. Set up for OBS. It should say if we're actually live. That doesn't look positive. Oop, that looks better. Cool. Let's just go into the studio. Let's mute my computer so that doesn't go off in the middle. Let's see the chat, see if anyone's here. Probably not. But we are live on all the destinations, so let's go. G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players who will bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Heff and this week I am joined by Tommy Wyman. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks. How are you, Heff?
Not too bad. Haven't seen you for a few weeks. What have you been up to?
Watching footy.
Yeah.
Come down the hill for this, so it's good.
Yeah, that's all right. Living up at Victor Harbour these days?
Victor Harbour, yeah. Yep.
Comes all the way to Adelaide for this podcast.
Yeah, it's worth
dedication.
it. It's worth it.
Loves it. Good to see. How's your fantasy teams going at the moment?
Absolutely horrible.
Yeah? What's the big issue?
not good. Started a new job and it's been hard to invest time into it this year, but no.
They sound like excuses to me, mate.
Yeah. No, but they're pretty good excuses though.
Yeah.
Pretty poor year, but it's still great to be involved in it. Yeah.
Who's been your hero so far this year?
Oh, I haven't had many, but I have really enjoyed and it's just what I enjoy about footy the most probably. I have really enjoyed looking at Sheasel, and those guys, the guys that are just coming in and just dominating straight away, like Ashcroft and all that. And I think we'll see a few more over the sort of second half of the season now. But that's my favourite part about it, seeing those guys just dominate straight away.
Well, the rookies are your bag. You still writing for the Rookie Me Central site?
No, not so much. Keeping track of them, and champs come up next month, so that'll be interesting.
Sure. Yep.
Always got my finger on the pulse with the champs and whatnot. But doing a bit for the sample, so watching a lot of 16s games, a lot of under 16s. So they're still a couple of years away from even being drafted, but it's good to watch them. You know, there's some guys putting up ridiculous numbers in that. So
nice. There always isn't a sample in the under 16s and the Colts and stuff like that. So interesting to hear. Might have to have you on after the carnival and just have a bit of a chat of some people to think about. Not like you can really draft them ahead of time once before they're in the game, but I think our listeners would definitely be interested to start planning for next year. Although we've had a lot of them in the media recently, one in particular that a lot of people are talking about. But
well, I mean, we sort of know who's going to be picked one. Harley Reid's unbelievable, but apart from him, there's plenty of talent there. They just beat Carlton's VFL side as an academy.
Saw that, yeah.
So, whether that says more about them or Carlton's VFL side, I don't know, but there's definitely a lot of talent there. So, it'll be good as it always is.
All right, we'll get stuck into the show in a second. We'll actually talk about the present and not the future. But before we do that, we'll just mention that this show is brought to you by Game Day Squad. Create, coach, and compete in fantasy football. If you haven't played it before, you open digital packs and get cards to make your team instead of selecting players from a pool. And different types of cards have different scoring powers. You can get up to 1.5 times multipliers. That's if you get a legend card, that is. You get free packs each week for logging in, and you can also buy cards and packs from the transfer market or buy packs and open them. I open a few packs on a live stream on a Wednesday night. You been watching those still?
They're always good. I find them enjoyable.
Have you,
I grew up in when I was in the middle school, and I got hinged on the FIFA phase when
I'm
Brazil
still
World Cup, and so I do love the pack openings and all that. But it's always good fun to watch.
If anyone hasn't been tuning in for the last few weeks, I've actually been giving away 5 free packs on the live stream. So if you haven't, they're common packs as well. So they're good for your capped leagues, which a lot of people play in as well. So you get your silvers and your golds that you can play there. So if you haven't jumped on a stream yet, you have to be kind of watching to win it. But I spin a wheel on that, and the winner gets the 5 packs. So make sure you're checking that out each week. Getting some good numbers on those streams as well on a Wednesday night. We did mention last week it interferes with Hat Chat's live stream as well, but I bet a healthy competition never really hurt. You can have 2 going at once anyway. Yeah, it's fun, it's free, it's easy. Game Day Squad. Head to gamedaysquad.com.au and get your team sorted out. All right, we're going to get stuck into the most relevant names of the week. I don't know. Oh, okay, we're going to go in game-by-game order. That's why I've got Scott Lycett at the top of the list. I was wondering why that was happening. But yeah, most relevant keeper league name. Scott Lycett was back this week. Scored 83 points. Absolutely killed Finlayson's scoring. What do you think going forward? Do you think Lycett's still the number one ruck? Or?
Yeah, I think he'd definitely be number one ruck for the time being, at least. Whether they want to look at someone in the draft, maybe. I think that is an area they could look to address. But for now, yeah, Lycett's he's the best ruckman on their list.
Yeah, I do agree in terms of pure tap, but probably not in terms of mobility. I think the one saving grace maybe for Finlayson, and this could be interesting, that we're expected to get expected to get Dixon and expected to get Marshall back this week. There's always that chance we just roll with Finlayson in the ruck, so like we did last year. So wait and see what happens there.
He certainly gives you more at ground level.
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly.
And he's a much better athlete, but it just moves better. But still, Lycett, yeah. He's a better tap ruckman.
Yeah, that's for sure. Monitor to see what happens there. I do think Lycett will be in, but a lot of people out there asking me about him. When's he coming back? So I think a lot of people invested a bit of stock in him this year. So a very relevant name for coaches this year. Another player really warming to, especially after his first few games of his career. But Dylan Williams has come on this year, reinvented himself as a halfback flanker after being a very, very slow small forward, kind of half forward before this year. Had 82 points, and he's actually put up a couple good scores in a row now. He's got a good role for fantasy cross half back. Takes a few kick-ins. I don't see him going anywhere, do you?
No, I reckon he's pretty set in this lineup, to be honest. Yeah. Like you said, when he was coming onto the scene, I remember he was talked about as maybe a top 5 draft pick early in his draft year, but then sort of faded towards the end and was always more of a forward, really sort of creative, mercurial forward. But it looks like he's really found his spot across halfback. It looks really good down there.
Yeah, no, I'm liking him, and he's been trusted with a few kick-ins and stuff like that. So it's probably
it's a nice kick.
Yeah, exactly.
He's always been a good user.
Yeah.
But now it's sort of being used in the back half, which I think is benefiting Port as well.
Port just have so many halfback flankers. That's the thing. But actually, yeah, one thing to note, I think, as well, they come up against Richmond this week, which quite a few halfbacks for Essendon scored pretty well last week. So Dylan Williams could be up for another good score this week if that trend kind of continues.
I didn't mind them using Burton up the ground a bit as well in a different role.
Yeah.
I thought he crashed and packs, did his job really well.
Yeah. He's done that a few times now.
Yeah.
Because he did kind of play as a forward as a junior, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It was the same as Williams, really.
Yeah.
Played a lot of juniors as a sort of a third tall forward.
Yeah.
Where he could, take some big marks and whatnot. But he's just always played sort of backline for the Hawks and then Port. But I don't mind him when he goes forward.
No, I don't mind him at all either. Yeah, not a bad whack play there. Should get forward status if he keeps that up for a few weeks. But I think at the moment probably hasn't started there enough. But anyway, there wasn't a lot of Melbourne players to talk about, so we'll move on to the North Melbourne Sydney game. Did you see this one?
I didn't. I saw the last 2 minutes and that was all I needed to see, I reckon. But I just watched a bit of highlights of Wardlaw and that was it.
You put out the tweet. The universe really seems to hate North Melbourne. Yeah. Don't you think? It's
such a North Melbourne thing to happen.
I don't know. Because I guess you can kind of have an extra couple interchanges for injured players. And he's coming off with cramp and. I don't know.
It's a bit of a mess, and it's quite technical actually. To
you get warnings for the 666. Don't you get a warning for the subs?
And the penalty, it's pretty big
it's
penalty.
Pretty harsh. It should be a free kick from the centre or something like that.
Yeah, free kicking 50, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. So put him on the goal line.
Wow,
it's ridiculous.
It's unlucky that it happened to be. So late in the game with that sort of margin. Yeah. That's decided a game, really.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's just weird seeing a game decided by the umpire putting his finger to his ear to listen to his earpiece and, just plucked out somewhere. It doesn't
feel right, really, does it?
Doesn't.
Especially because they played really well in such a tough week for them.
Need to think about that rule, I think, or the punishment for that rule. It should be maybe like a big fine for the club or something like that, but something that doesn't affect them on field, maybe a 10 grand fine for the club, second time, 50,000 or something like that.
I agree. That win would have been huge if they had a...
Exactly.
If they had
given the caretaker coach situation and stuff like that. But anyway, Bailey Scott in this game, 121 points. He's put up back-to-back good scores. I can't really put my finger on why this was, this bump has happened. I guess there was a lot of injuries last week, which meant 3 players went out, but they obviously replaced them this week. I know maybe just got involved more with those outs, but it just seemed to be everywhere running up and down that wing. I think he kicked a goal as well in this game, so... Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I think I remember that as well. So Bailey Scott, yeah, as a wingman, I don't know, like he's not one that I love in that role, but he's done it 2 weeks in a row, so we've got to start taking notice, don't you think?
It almost seems like he's not like great at any one specific area of his game, but he's reasonably good at most things. One of those sort of vanilla's a bit harsh probably, but he sort of seems to be decent at a lot of things. And yeah, that's a big score.
Yeah, good underage scorer though, Bailey Scott.
Yeah, really good junior scorer because he was sort of quite well developed and played a good role. So yeah, he did score well as a junior.
Callum Coleman-Jones also had a good game, kicked a few goals in this one. 105 points. He was up forward and then in the ruck a bit as well. He kicked 9 in the VFL last week, but I think you'd probably want to see him score 100 again before you even consider him, I think.
Yeah, it was really good to see him start the game pretty well. He took a couple of good marks early, and I think he's a real confidence player, and that was awesome to see him do that. But yeah, I mean, he has shown glimpses before, but we've never seen it come together consistently. Yeah. Hopefully, this is a bit of a turning point for him.
Someone's got to take that ruck position off Goldstein next year. They think it's going to be Cherry, but doesn't seem to ever be able to get his body right.
Yeah, I like Combin, but obviously he's gone down with a pretty serious injury.
Everyone's injured.
But yeah, well, there's a spot there for him if he can take it, but it's up to him, really.
Yeah. Here we go. The one you want to talk about, George Wardlaw, 82 points. What do you make of his game?
Yeah, it was great. Really, really good. You know, I think the collision with, I think it was Parker, perhaps.
I remember it. I can't remember specifically who it was, but it was hard.
It was a hard hit. Yeah. I mean, both players are right, but it's a big hit, and it sort of typifies the way he plays. You know, he's so hard at the ball. He throws himself at the ball. He really does. He's not the biggest bloke going around, but you know, I think he should be a mainstay of this North midfield for a long time. And unless he's injured, I don't think he should play another VFL game this year. He looked really good. Scored 82 points. He wasn't a massive scorer as a junior. Certainly scored well, but wasn't quite at the level of someone like Ashcroft. But 82 points is obviously a great return on debut. Don't expect maybe that every week. But if he can continue to earn his midfield minutes in that side, you know, I think we can expect a decent average. And then I think hopefully he can turn into maybe a 90 average or something by the end in a couple of years' time. Yeah, but I don't know if he's going to be a massive. Huge. He doesn't quite play that, you know, that really fantasy. Game. You know, it doesn't. But his impact per possession is great. Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable starting him on field though in your draft leagues at least?
Yeah, possibly. But, you know, I hope he can develop more of it. I hope he can sort of win more outside ball because I think that's really where his more points are going to come from for him because his inside game's awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on to some Sydney players. Robbie Fox, he had 96 points. He does this from time to time when he doesn't have to play on the kind of, you know, the key forward, doesn't have to play that key back role. I think he's worth owning if you have a deep list, but again, like he's going to be a roller coaster, so not one we really have to go into in huge detail. Lachlan McAndrew had 66 points. He could be the number one option for a bit because we saw Latham go down. I think Hickey's re-injured himself. I'm not sure what this means for his fantasy output, but he's someone you could pick up if you need a ruck. Also, I guess on the back of that too, Hayden McLean kind of shares the number 2 role when a few of the other ruckmen are out type things. So I think given Lachlan McAndrew is kind of being a bit green, they might up the responsibility on Hayden McLean a bit as well. So I think he's probably one to actually just have a look at as a forward if you maybe cheeky one off the waivers or something like that because, he could put up a few good numbers. What do you reckon?
I quite like McLean actually as a player. I think he's pretty good and, you know, when he's been up forward, he's been able to kick goals and I think he kicked the goal that actually won it for Sydney. But, you know, I do like him, but whether he's, you know, I don't know what his scoring is going to look like now that he's going to get probably more ruck time. But it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll move on to the next game. I'm sure you can't wait to talk about the Crows' performance on the weekend. It's probably the first real disappointing display we've seen from them.
Yeah,
I was talking them up on the group chat the week prior, saying like, you know, my mate was saying, I think Pugs has been on the show before, he was saying that the younger teams are going to tire soon. And I just said, I don't think the Crows are one of those teams that are going to tire. I think they're up, you know, they've been competitive in their losses and things like that. And then they serve up this trash for me. So
yeah. I mean, they were, it's probably, like you said, it's the first game that they were never really in.
Yeah.
And, you know, the decision.
Dogs are a good side.
Dogs are really good. And, you know, finals aren't played at Ballarat. But, still disappointing. No excuses, still disappointing. They did really miss Tex.
Absolutely.
Just aligns everything.
Yeah.
whether he wouldn't have won them the game. They didn't play well enough for that. Midfield got smashed. But yeah, it just sort of highlights the fact that I don't think it's far from a finished product. As well as they've played. I don't think the midfield's finished at all.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, but if you were to tell me that they'd only be sort of out of one game this year at the start, then
sitting in the 8 now
take that
as well.
Yeah,
still sitting in the 8. All right, we'll get into some players from this one. Bailey Williams, 100 points. He does it again.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Some monster scores. So I think I'm going to have to make him too good for the podcast. Was he just playing that wing role again?
Yeah, and pushing forward.
Kicks goals.
Yeah, he really can kick a goal. Yeah, it was awesome for him. He tore us up, absolutely.
Yep, Dossie will be happy. Just given his scoring output over the last month, he's probably on everyone's list, so there's no point talking about him here anymore because he's been picked up everywhere. So Bailey Williams, grab him if he's still available on your waiver wire, that's for sure. Paddy Parnell, I want to know about him. So 77 points. Can you describe his game for us?
Yeah, he was probably wasn't the worst crow out there.
Yeah.
I think he had 16 touches, and 13 of them were kicks, and that's really what the Crows want from him. His foot skills is what gets him into the game. What gets him a game. He's not tall at all, and he doesn't get the best opposition forward, but he's a real kicker off half back, and job security is probably his issue, especially with Duday still to come back in the side, but. He found plenty of it against the Saints last week too, so he can find the ball. Yeah,
back-to-back consistent performances in terms of fantasy. It's going to be interesting how he plays out, long-term. Was he a mid-season draft pick?
He was. Yeah, he was. He was, and still is quite
young,
quite small, quite slight. It's pretty obvious when you see him play, but I think he'll always be that type, and but it doesn't seem to faze him, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. He seems to, and like in his early games last year's first few games, like being in the classic format, he was pretty serviceable for us there. So he's shown he's had fantasy game in the past. Hopefully he can just maintain some consistent scoring and keep that, job security going, really. We'll move on to the Freo Geelong game. I didn't actually see a lot of this game, but good performance by Freo to knock off the reigning premiers, who are really up and down at the moment.
Yeah, but, injuries obviously don't help, but still got on Freo for getting the win there.
Yeah, I think they make their fans a bit happier over the way they performed at the start of this year. But anyway, Lachie Schultz, another one that we love on this podcast, just purely because we get to talk about it all the time, because he's never going to get to that level where he's too good to be spoken about here. But yeah, he had 114 points, 8 tackles, 8 marks and a goal. Also scored 90 last week, and he's averaging 70 for the season with some good scores thrown in there. Probably one of his better fantasy scoring seasons, but yeah, he's just a player who will likely throw up a 50 next week, that's all.
Yeah, it's consistency. I actually really like him as a player.
Yeah, same.
Fantasy-wise, it's just consistency for him.
Yeah, exactly. Bailey Banfield, 89 points. It's probably just good to see him get a bit more of a consistent run and being used as a sub less and things like that. But yeah, he had 89 points, 20 touches, 15 kicks, 5 handballs, 8 marks and a goal. Not a bad stat line. But yeah, probably just more of a tip of the cap for now. But maybe take notice if he puts up another good score.
Yeah, I mean, he's been used in different roles in the past, probably as a tagger and whatnot. But
sits up forward now.
Yeah, it's sort of as a decoy forward sort of thing. But 8 marks is a really good return for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in a game where they won, so it probably explains a bit. Moving on to the Cats, the only one really worth mentioning here is Tanner Bruhn. He's getting a decent run in the midfield, but apparently had a lot of turnovers in this game as well. But scored 93. Does this continue when the likes of Dangerfield return?
Well, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
It's a pretty, it just doesn't when Dangerfield and some of the other guys returned as well. I think he started really well in this game. I didn't watch a heap of it.
Yeah.
I think he started really well, but then dropped off a bit. I think he might have had like 11 touches really early in maybe the first quarter, and then I think he finished with 19, so we did slow. But 93 is a great result from him, and but unfortunately I just don't think it continues when Danger returns.
Nah, definitely long term though. Once those kind of guys retire and drop off, he's the next guy in there. But yeah, it just might be a bit inconsistent this season. Darcy Wilmot, moving on to the Q Clash. Darcy Wilmot had 74 points. This is his best score of the season. That backline is decimated in terms of rebound defenders. We got Rich out at the moment. Kadeem Coleman went down again in this game. So he's kind of like the last man standing there. I think Rich is only 1 or 2 away, so that might eat away him at the moment. But I don't know, do you have faith for Darcy Wilmot in the future?
Yeah, well, I think Brisbane have faith in him because they've played him, I think, every game this year.
Yeah, he's been on between the wing and halfback flank, really.
Yeah, so I think Fagan really likes him, and he played him in the finals last year, so there's obviously trust there. So he's the future that, Rich wouldn't have too many years left in him. So he's the future of that back line, or sort of, can play wing as well. But yeah, whether he scores that well when the guys you spoke about come back, probably not. But yeah, for the future, for sure.
We'll move on to one of your rookies that you love talking about, and that's in the Gold Coast Suns. That's Bailey Humphries. Humphrey? Is it Humphries? Humphrey. 90 points. He had a big score last week as well. What's the turnaround here? What's the difference? I
think he's just been given a good run at it. He hasn't been dropped after, 1 or 2 games like Gold Coast have done in the past. Stewie Jew's obviously shown a bit of faith in him. But he really provides him with something different. He's got a bit of X factor about him, bit of explosiveness, which really complements Rowell and Anderson, and he's really what they need. Has been a good scorer as a junior, and 90 points is a really good return from him. But getting that sort of consistent run in the side really benefited him as well. Obviously, can play half forward and whatnot, but I think he's a midfielder in the long term.
Yeah, going all right at the moment. And like I said, you're probably right. They're just actually trusting him and giving him a bit of a crack. A few more CBAs, not a heap, but a bit of midfield time. But it's just his confidence, I think, has grown on the back of just being trusted. So, yeah, going all right at the moment. A guy I don't know, I picked up the rat, Rory Atkins, that is, in our mid-season draft. So I'm happy in that respect. But he's probably killed me in Classic from not picking him up, where I think every other coach around me has. Stewie Jew loves the rat now, apparently, and I can't see him going away. And he just keeps getting it done fantasy-wise out of defence. I think he's gone at 90% in the last 2 games or so, but the kicks haven't been really breathtaking. They've just been chipping around.
Not super damaging. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't know. What do you make of the whole rat situation?
Well, there would have been a few, probably not heaps, but a few that probably forgot about him once he left the Crows, because he really hasn't been given a crack at the Suns. It's probably a bit harsh, because he was good at the Crows, but good in a good side. Yeah, if you get what I mean.
He was there when they were making grand finals.
Yeah, he was, and he's more of a cream on top type player. Yeah. Which is fair enough. He's very outside, but he's getting it done at the moment, which is really good to see, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I loved him when we were up and about the Crows, but it's good to see him suddenly getting seemingly pretty randomly just getting a good run in the side.
I'll ask you the same question I asked Jake last week. Does he hold his spot? Does he hold it through to the buys at least?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he does. I can't see him going away now, which is annoying me. But anyway, we've got him in the keeper league, so that's what it's all about, really. All right, Charlie Ballard had 75 points. He takes lots of marks in defence. I don't know what it is about him, because he doesn't look like the most imposing figure back there as one of your taller defenders, but it always just seems to fall on his lap. Or he would just time it so much better than his opposition, or just wrong foot him.
He reads the ball really well.
It's nuts.
It's weird. As a junior, he used to play everywhere, but he had a massive growth spurt in his draft year.
Yeah.
So he used to play on the wing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And as a tall forward. But then, obviously after his growth spurt, started playing key position, but didn't really lose any of his skills. Now he's playing key defence and playing really, really well in AFL level. And, he's one of their most important players. He'd be one of their first picked.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's the type of player that can easily take 10 marks a game, and any key defender that takes 10 marks a game, as we established last year on the podcast, generally scores pretty well. So, he's one to start thinking about. That has never really crossed my mind before. But, Charlie Ballard, good on you. Taking a lot of marks in defence. Jai Caldwell moving on to Dreamtime of the G. I didn't actually watch this one. I watched the Q Clash because I figured that everyone else would be watching Dreamtime of the G, so I actually took one for the team and watched the other one.
Well, someone had to watch that game.
Yeah, I had to watch the Q Clash. Wasn't too bad, honestly.
It's one of the better Q Clashes, probably.
Yeah, definitely. Did you watch the Dreamtime?
I did.
Yeah, cool. So what did you make of Jai Caldwell's game?
Yeah, it was great. Look, it's really good to see him, a guy with such talent, really starting to put it all together. And, I think Essendon really needed guys like him to step up and take some of the load off the guys like Merritt and Parrish and whatnot. Him and Setterfield have done a really good job at that. But he just needs, and we've got it here, he just needs a consistent run at it without injuries.
Yeah, we spoke about him last time. Yeah. I think actually last time you were on, you said... I think you said he just needs someone to get injured so he can get a good run at it. And now it's happened. Parrish, Setterfield, Shield, all out.
Yeah.
So he's finally getting that run. But I think it's just kind of like a wave that you got to ride because those guys are going to come back
I reckon he will be a really good piece in the long term.
Yeah.
It's just playing a bit of a waiting game right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is a bit unfortunate for him.
Yeah. There's a few of them like that at Essendon. But, he's got forward status at the moment, so that makes him extra valuable. And over the next probably 4 5 weeks while these injuries are happening, well, particularly Setterfield, and I don't know how long it's going to take I don't even know if Shield should be in their best 22 at the moment anyway. I don't really know.
Well, that's,
Yeah. Like, he's playing well. I guess I haven't watched Essendon that much, but I feel like there's just one too many midfielders in there anyway, and he's probably the next one to drop out. That's all. But yeah, ride the Caldwell wave while it lasts, because given he's got forward stats, should be pretty handy. Ben Hobbs, very much talked about in the fantasy world this week, thanks to the Warn Dog. Really spooked him last week and didn't pick him up, as we found out today on the podcast. But luckily Calvin did, so someone's flying the flag for him. But 92 points. Also saw a bump with the outs. So last week we saw, I think, an 80-plus score with 0 CBAs. Got that CBA bump this week with their run out and scored pretty well. Essendon got the win. I think there's no doubts that this kid's going to be a gun, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely not. The way he's scoring in this role, wait till he plays in his role he was drafted in as an inside mid. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
But he just looks like confident out there, just takes the ball, like all that. So, yeah, it's going to be a gun, I think.
I don't think he's going to be a gun, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Starting to see it come into fruition now as well. Just a disclaimer, I think I mentioned this before. There's just a lot of points for those kind of rebounding, running defenders in this game. So against Richmond, that's McGrath had 117, Redmond had 107, Heppel had 92, Hind at 84. So yeah, just mentioned before when we were talking about Dylan Williams, they play Port this weekend. So could be a few points in Port's defence because, kind of like the St Kilda bump. Maybe monitor that one. This might be a similar thing when it comes to playing Richmond. Speaking of Richmond players, Jack Ross had 103 points. Been more of an outside type, or just kind of chucked on the wing a bit more, but played a bit more time in the middle and the inside this week. And I guess that probably coincides with Hopper being out for 4 to 6 weeks. So do you think this is another wave you can kind of ride? Yeah,
I think so. For the time being, 4 to 6 weeks, I reckon, he's going to be given a crack inside. And has proven he can score pretty well in there. I'd be having a punt on him if you need a short-term option. Don't know about long-term, but Hopper's out at least.
Have you heard the big news this week, tonight?
I haven't.
Damien Hardwick retired, or left the job.
Has he?
Yeah, tomorrow he's going to announce his, retirement or stepping down from the coach of Richmond.
Well, that's huge.
So that could throw in a few things like, Jack Ross maybe potentially getting some more midfield time, whatever, trying a few different things with a...
Jeez, we're breaking news on the pod now.
Oh, well, I think it's all over Twitter already, you probably just driving here.
Driving.
When I came here, so, it only just come out, so, it's a bit sad for Richmond supporters, but...
it's an end of an era, for sure.
Absolutely, and it's kind of a signifying that there might be some change or some things might be done differently, so he's probably one to watch.
Look for those type of guys,
maybe a
bit of a role change.
Maybe a Thompson Dow as well, they might get a bit of a run,
those
I don't know.
Sorts of guys, absolutely.
Who knows, although, are Richmond out of it? Do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they might actually start trying a few different things.
Yeah, they are, I think.
Moving on to the West Coast versus Hawthorn game. I watched the replay of this. I subjected myself to this.
That's a good effort.
Now,
that's dedication.
That said, I don't know, I didn't pay heaps of attention to it because it was boring as batshit, but I actually sat down and, chucked the replay on from this. So I've got a disclaimer, and this is breaking news. West Coast suck. They are awful. There's I guess there's a question about later from one of the listeners about some scoring trends and stuff like that, and it's not always the bad teams that are the easiest to score against in fantasy as a whole, but for West Coast, they're giving up a lot of points to midfielders. So, and I think the probably next score exemplifies this. Connor Nash had 130 points. So I've been spruiking Connor Nash probably for the last 4 weeks hard, but I didn't even see this. Did you?
Wow. No. Yeah. No, I haven't. But West Coast and it's probably not great for the comp this game, to be honest. To have your 18th side getting beaten by
100 points,
it's not a great look, and especially when you consider we're going to be adding another side in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably not a great look, but that was great for Connor Nash.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was his game where he had. Let me restart. He hasn't had under 25 disposals since round 4, so I thought that was a pretty cool stat. But looking at his kick to handball ratio, it's been 4 kicks, 21 handballs type thing. But this was his first positive kick to handball ratio game that he's played this season, and this is what he spits out when he does that. So, and the thing is, I know he's a big fella and he's kind of more of that extractor mold, but when you look at him, he's a pretty powerful dude. He's 190, what'd you say,
197 centimetres. He's bigger than Paddy Cripps.
Yeah, massive. And can get on can put the jets on, can get moving, and now his kick's not terrible either. It's not fantastic.
It's not a bad kick.
But it's not that bad
He's
either.
a seriously big dude.
If he can start using it by a foot a bit more, like he's already averaging 80 with a slow start to the season, being used in tagging roles. But yeah, he's very, very close to Tuga for the podcast right now. So.
He can definitely find the ball. He's sort of a bit of a shovel, just gets in there and handles it out. But it's good to see him kicking it.
Do Hawthorn have like too many of these types, like Newcomb, Warple, Nash? Is it going to be hard? And then even like Will Day kind of is a bit of a different type to those guys, but still is a good clearance player.
Yeah, I think Newcomb's a little bit different to them. I think actually this year he's been really good, getting a bit of more outside ball.
Yeah.
And I think he's a bit more damaging than Warple and Nash, but I don't think you can play Warple and Nash. Ideally, I don't think they're in the same side.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep playing the same side because there's just no other cattle. But yeah.
Well, when you get beaten in size by 100 points.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Albeit it's West Coast.
True. All right, move on to the next player. That's Mitch Lewis. He scored more than West Coast, the whole side did. So a guy in the bottom place side or whatever, just outscoring. I think Sir Swamp Thing put out a stat that was like, it's the first time since 95 or something that the team, a player on the bottom of the ladder has outscored their opposition type thing.
It's pretty damning, but Mitch Lewis is a star. He is a
gun.
Since returning from injury, he hasn't missed a beat.
Yeah.
It's been really good. So
yeah. I agree. I just don't know how often he's going to kick bags of 6 in this season.
And he's going to rely on his goals.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, definitely one for the future. He will be a kind of, I think he's one of those 70 plus averaging key forwards when he gets up and going and matures and all that sort of stuff. Another one of the rookies to get you excited, Josh Weddle, 104 points. Hawks controlled the footy pretty much all day, so it allowed him to like get involved in a bit of mark, kick, chip around. But Weddle just really did what he wanted. Like he just kept running up the ground, got forward early, kicked a couple goals. Like, yeah, he was had a pretty good game.
Yeah, and he can do that because he can play anywhere. Yeah. Like, the thing with him is he played everywhere in junior footy. Wing, inside mid, half back, half forward.
Was he kind of drafted as like with a key back in mind? Is that right?
Can play keep. He's sort of that. Yeah, it's probably
but more of a hybrid.
Yeah, more of a hybrid, I think. Yeah. And his athleticism lends itself to roles probably further up the ground. Like he's a really good athlete and a good kick. It's great to see him. It's great to see him pushing forward and kicking a couple of goals as well. But I think he's a real talent. Absolutely. Yeah. Where he fits in long term, I'm not sure. They probably don't even know. Yeah, that's it.
There seems to be a few kind of players of this type. I think Granger Barras is kind of a similar player.
Yeah,
I prefer Weddle over him though at the moment.
Yeah, Weddle's probably a lot more mobile than Granger Barras.
You might see Granger go back to West Coast or something at the next year.
Well, he's out of favour and he's such a high draft pick, so it's a bit disappointing.
Anyways, probably not that fantasy relevant anyway. But Lockie Bramble, moving on, 96 points. He's always shown signs when he actually gets a run, he can be a good fantasy scorer. So it's just good to see him get him, run the game with this. Like again, disclaimer: West Coast suck. Don't expect this many good scores from Hawthorn players, but Bramble's another one that coaches out there that own him would be pretty happy to see. I guess another flag is Lloyd Meek had 95 points, but Reeves got subbed out again with the ice on that ankle. I think it might have been precautionary, but just note that if there is going to be a sole ruckman in Hawthorn, they generally score pretty well this year. It's just when they have to split the time, they both usually suck. So yeah, if Reeves goes out again this week with that ankle, just maybe stream Lloyd Meek in your sides because there's quite a few people out there that have them handcuffed, I think. So that's probably a play. Cam McKenzie, 94 points. Got it done. Forward, you got a few CBAs as well. Kicked a couple goals. You're on top of this guy. You think he's going to be a gun?
Yeah, love him. He's going to be a midfielder in time. But yeah, it shows he can do it in a different couple of roles as well. But yeah, it's going to be him and Day and Weddle and guys like that. Connor McDonald, I think, will push up into a midfield or at least a high half forward that pushes up in time. But those sort of guys, they're the future of the Hawks. And, McKenzie's a high draft pick for a reason.
Connor McDonald was the sub and only played 40% time on ground and scored 74 points. So that just gives us a bit of an idea of his fantasy scoring power when he can put things together and have a shit opposition. But yeah,
I'm quite bullish on him actually. I really like him as a player.
I think a lot of people are. We just haven't seen him in a friendly role this year. But when he gets everything together, he's going to be a gun. And Seamus Mitchell has been awesome this year as well. 85 points just coming off halfback. He's put a few good games together now. So what's his story? Where did he come from?
I actually don't know. This is one of the few players I'm not 100% sold on. Sort of haven't really seen him. But he's definitely coming into the league. He definitely had raps on his kicking.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing about him.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously putting a couple of good games together now.
In their best 22 by the sounds. So.
Well, he is.
Yeah,
I think Mitchell. He's obviously a favourite of Sam Mitchell and probably fits the way they want to play.
It's not his son, is it? They got the same son.
It's not his son.
Yeah. But anyways, on to some West Coast players. Dom Sheed, 139 points. Again, this is what we wanted round one in all our classic teams. But I was on Hatchat. I threw him out there, and the Hatchat boys were like, nah. Not a good pickup, but if for those who weren't aware, I was on the Hatchat show last week for the first time. But yeah, I threw him out there as a name. I kind of wish I went there in Classic now because given his price and everything, and I think he's got a low break even this week as well. So one to think about, but yeah, one of the few shining lights. Out of the West Coast players kind of getting away from fantasy again, like to have any currency, is he the type of player that you think West Coast should be trading? Has he got currency?
Yeah, I think so. I couldn't tell you who would want him specifically.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard, but
they just got nothing they've got to get rid of to get fixed in.
You know, they're going to have to get rid of guys like him, unfortunately, because they need young players.
Yeah, like maybe you could probably trade McGovern if he's ever going to get his body right. But
trouble is they've signed him up for years.
Yeah,
and years,
so that was silly, wasn't it?
Well, they signed all these guys up when they were flying, and they're paying for it now a little bit. But I think they're going to have to really sit down, and it's probably going to be more than just Sheed they're going to have to look at.
Yeah.
It's just what they're going to have to do.
I'm just trying to think of any player that has currency, and probably he's one of like 2 or 3. Yeah, it's weird that, I don't know, they've just gone nowhere and they've got nothing to like cash in on, which sucks a bit. At least, Hawthorn could have, Tom Mitchell last year and that sort of stuff. So
yeah, they're going to be down the bottom for a long time.
I think so as well. Speaking of keep going with the West Coast players, Bailey Williams had 104 points, but yeah, it was a weaker ruck matchup. But good to see him do it with Callum Jamison in the side, so a shining light there, I guess, for some owners. Jake Waterman's having a very good season, 84 points. He just floats back when they need him to and takes a few marks, especially when they're getting belted. So he goes all right. And one flag is Jack Petrocelli got some midfield time, so he needed 81 points as a result. So watch that one considering he's a forward, but again, bottom versus second to bottom. Not sure how much we can actually take about this game, even though we just talked about it probably for 5 minutes. But yeah, very weird game, that's for sure. Moving on to the Collingwood-Carlton game on the Sunday. Darcy Moore is the first player I want to talk about. He had 110 points, and he's had a good month. Can take an intercept grab, takes kick-ins. Do you think he's rosterable at the moment?
He's probably one of the most informed players in the comp.
Yeah.
Like, he absolutely dominated on Sunday.
Does it last?
They just kept kicking it to him. Don't know at that level it lasts, but he's certainly in a rich vein of form. The way he intercepts the ball is as good as anyone. So and he does take kick-ins, which is handy. Him and Dacos sort of split it a little bit. Yeah. He's such a good player. So good to watch. I really enjoy watching him.
Yeah, and he's their captain as well, so he kind of gets a bit of the run of things back there as well. So yeah, Darcy Moore is an option. I wouldn't hate taking him off the waivers at the moment if you needed another defender. The Darcy Cameron Mason Cox was a big watch for the weekend. Both had very low time on ground though, by the looks. You watched this game. What did you make of that ruck split? What do you think it looked like? Who was number one?
Well, it looked like Coxie did a fair bit of it. And Cox is in such good form at the moment. Like he's probably in. It's a big call probably, but he's probably in the best form of his life.
Collingwood have like these mediocre players that they just make look like kings. Like they're all amazing.
And he's so much bigger than everyone else. He just monsters them. But yeah, in the ruck, I think he looks all right. He's obviously very different to Darcy Cameron. He gives him, he's a fair bit taller, and Darcy Cameron's obviously a bit better at ground level. But I think he was going to start as a sub in this game. I think Darcy Cameron.
Yeah, and then was late
change. So
I think. Who went? Ginnivan went out.
Ginnivan went out. Yeah. But I think just working Darcy Cameron back into the side. I think, to be honest, he's a better ruckman than Mason Cox. But Cox is he's in some serious form at the moment. And he's definitely in their best 22.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah. Moving on to the last game of the round, GWS versus St Kilda. Always going to be a decent game for fantasy. First one I'll talk about is Brent Daniels. He's always been a favourite of this podcast. He's more of a forward, but he works really high up the ground and kind of works on the way back as well, like in that link-up style of play that GWS play. Almost like an extra midfielder at times, really. I think he's just a good waiver pickup as a streamer slash loophole option at times. What do you think of Brent Daniels?
Yeah, I really like him. He's one of my favourite players from the Giants, probably.
Yeah.
High half forward role, works super hard, not blessed with height. But,
Yeah, no, definitely not.
But really works bloody hard up the ground. And yeah, he gets himself involved and can also run back and kick a snag as well. But yeah, I actually really like him as a player, and he can find the ball, so that's always going to be handy.
Not going to be a too good for the podcast player anytime soon, but yeah,
no,
handy.
he's a ways off still, handy. But yeah, no, handy.
Kieran Briggs had 84 points. All right, so the commentary said Flynn was rested, and I was like, okay, fair enough. But then I looked at the team sheet, it said omitted, and he played VFL, so I think the commentary team got that one wrong. Flynn hasn't been awful, but anyway, Kieran Briggs was okay in the ruck in this game and did some really nice things up forward as well. Had a nice snap up forward, something that I didn't think the big man could actually do. He might hold his spot as well with Himmelberg suffering a bit of an elbow to the head. I think concussion with that.
Yeah, he's got concussion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he stays in the side.
Yeah, same. So I don't know. It might be bad news for Flynn owners, or if they play him in tandem, then it's definitely bad news for Flynn owners as well because they'll split that scoring. But just have a look. If he's a solo ruck, he could be worth a pickup. I think the news is Bruce is out for He was due to be back any week now. And then I think he's re-injured himself again or done something again. So Bruce is going to be out for a long time again as well. So
you can't catch a break really, can you?
Yeah. And owners of him in fantasy can't catch a break either. So you're going to need either Briggs and you're going to need Flynn to handcuff to. So not a situation I'd like to be in at the moment. And the only player I've got here for St Kilda that isn't already too good for the podcast is Max King, but he returned and he was instrumental in the win really. Had 83 points, kicked 4 goals. Just good to see him back playing. I think he's going to be another one of those key forwards that can be a handy 75, kind of almost to the 80 mark, just given that they're going to kick a few goals each week.
Yeah, he's going to kick a couple of goals each week, as you say. And yeah, it's good to see him back, to be honest. The Saints are going to be better for it.
Yeah, he's going to be, if he can just stay fit and stay on the park, he's going to be a generational talent. So yeah, it's good to see it. Good to see signs in this game again. Anyways, that's the end of the most relevant players of the week. If you want to support the podcast, though, please sign up as a member and keep this thing going from week to week. In return for your support, we'll give you back our CBA analysis numbers, kick-in numbers, all the State League fantasy scores in a nice organised kind of table, and the breakout tracker as well, which lets you compare younger players to the best players in the comp at the same point in their careers to see if they're going to break out as well. So a few gold members to read out. Let's thank Grant Pine, Brody Jarrod, Caroline Taylor, Aaron Colley, Curtis Stark, Glenn Roebuck, Mitchell Hancock, Michael McKenna, Ben Downey, and the one and only Mark Cosgrove.
I was reading through this and I was wondering, is that the man himself?
Yeah. I think it is. Well, Tommy, I was wondering if you're old enough to know who Mark Cosgrove was.
I know Cosgrove. Just I reckon.
For those who don't follow state cricket, Mark Cosgrove is a bit of a state Redbacks, South Australian Redback state cricket legend. Big fella that could hit the ball around probably in the 2000s, I think it was. Maybe
absolutely.
Late, 2010, early 2010.
I think he's still going somewhere.
I think he's playing up at
Northern Districts or something like that.
Yeah, got a few mates did have a few mates that played up there as well. So yeah, the one and only Mark Cosgrove. So yeah, thanks for signing up.
Thanks, Cosy.
Yeah, I think it is the Mark Cosgrove as well. So yeah, nice to see his name on the list there. But yeah, thanks to those gold members. But yeah, if you can't sign up as a member, all good. Other ways to show your support. Probably need some podcast reviews on the old Apple platform actually. So if you want to show your support there, and just jump on and say a few nice things, give us some 5-star rating. I would greatly appreciate that. Just to follow the YouTube channel would probably help as well, trying to get numbers up there. And then you also get notified of my live streams on Wednesday night too. So everyone wins, you know. All right, on to the hot topics and the listener questions sent in by our members and also some of our listeners. First one comes from Josh Gallo. He's wondering, will Lockie Jones ever be relevant? I see glimpses of him being a great player, but concerned with the injuries. What are your thoughts on Lockie Jones?
He's got a real blend of nice skills. Like he's a decent kick. Really tough, powerful,
and he's quick,
quite explosive. Yeah. He's really quick.
Yeah.
There's tools there, but I just don't see him becoming a consistent player. And I don't think he can be relevant consistently. What do you reckon?
He's not on the injury list at the moment for Port unless he's got injured this week. I'm just trying to look up how he's going at the Sandful level. But hold on, Lachlan Jones.
It must be frustrating for him because he's always been such a man-child sort of thing.
Yeah. He's not lining up at the Sanford level either. He's only averaging 55 down there as well.
I don't think he's ever really been a big scorer.
Nah, that's the thing.
It's not really his game.
Yeah, even like when he was playing at Woodville West Torrens, he was more of a kind of lockdown that could kind of run off his man a bit when he needed to. But
I think he's just more impact per possession than weighted numbers, which probably doesn't make him super relevant.
Yeah, not yet anyway. He's behind a lot of players as well.
He's still young.
Yeah, exactly. So give him some time, but he might be a stash option. I don't see it happening this year anyway. At Fred and Terry 1, who would you be picking up off the waivers, Sam Berry or Will Snelling? As a Crows man, would you be going near Sam Berry at the moment?
At the start of the season, I would have said yes, because I reckon he would have been firmly best 22. But I don't think he is anymore, to be quite honest. I think we look better when we have a bit more polish in there.
Yep.
I'd rather give minutes to the likes of Pedlo, Rochelle, Rankin, Saligo, than someone with like Berry. I was surprised to see him coming as a sub actually.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go Snelling, but
Snelling for this season. I don't know, like, could he kind of take Laird's role in the midfield eventually?
Yeah, Laird's not getting any younger. He can. That's probably the logical option there. But, and when he is in there, he's obviously tackling based. So he can score well.
What was Laird game like? Was it that kind of, because it was in Ballarat, was it that kind of like stoppage kind of tackle after tackle type thing? Or was
it was, but the midfield got absolutely annihilated. Like Bailey Smith had probably one of the best games I've ever. It might be the best game I've seen him play.
Yeah,
in the
fair
NFL.
enough.
So he was unbelievable.
I'd go Snelling short term, Berry long term.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. At Major Van Bam, has Darcy Moore become a waiver? I think we established that in the show. Yeah, I think he has.
I think he's a decent option.
Yeah, I'd pick him up. Just especially if you've got a deep list, have him sitting there. Could be a handy streamer option, even a loophole option, depending on when they play. But at Russ wants to know how are Walsh and Short going to get DPP. So have a look at this. So Short's only 25% CBAs over the past 5 weeks. Did pick that up in the last few rounds, I believe, but I think by the time it gets, I think there's only one more week of calculations. He'd have to go like very, very large to get it up into a range where he's not starting somewhere else. Walsh has had 51% of the CBAs over the past 5, so I think he will get there, but I think it's not going to be as much of a shoe-in as people thought it was. And if he, again, it's only one more week, so to get up to 50%, he would have to have a lot of midfield time this week. So I think he might get there, but I think it might be one of those lucky ones where by the end of the season, he's not playing that much forward time, but you've just got a player sitting there with forward status. It might be one that loses it next year as well. Yeah,
and it'll be interesting with Richmond where the new coach, I'm not sure who's going to take over, but where they play Short, because they have trialled him in the midfield before. I really like him off half back, but it'd be interesting to see where he slots in.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question. At Nathan Byrne wants to know who are some of the best players to target for teams going all in this year. My answer to that really is just get old players that you can get under their scoring value, if that makes sense. So, like, if the person who owns Zeeble is down the bottom of the ladder, like, they might be kind of willing to sell him, for a good rookie or something like that that's not scoring well at the moment. Someone like a Jai Clark or something like that who's probably not going to get a run. You might be able to make that trade happen. Daniel Rich is another one who's probably undervalued just given the injuries, and his average doesn't look great, but when he has a full injury-free game, he generally scores around that 90 to 100 mark around there. Pendlebury, another one that's probably on the, if they win a flag this year, he's probably done. Do you reckon Pendles might retire if they go close? Or if they get there?
I don't reckon. I reckon he's got another year left in him.
Yeah, okay.
Could he break Boomer Harvey's record?
Yeah, he could do. He's still playing like an absolute gun, so he doesn't. Yeah, probably should actually.
He's playing as well as anyone at this game's level has ever played.
Yeah, that's fair.
Probably the best.
Players like Isaac Smith, probably another one. Mitch Duncan, those types. Aaron Hall, actually, for the retirement game. So I reckon they might just roll him out.
They're going to feed him the ball and he's going to get 55 kicks.
They'll roll him out in round 24 and they'll just give him the ball on string. So pick him up just and wait for him to play round 24 if you're going to make the grand final, because he'll win you that game. He'll win you that Norm Smith.
He will actually. He'll come in his last game. He'll have, he'll just take the mickey out of it, and they will feed him the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll take every kick in. So retirement game for Aaron Hall. Get on board. Arnhem Mikey wants to know. So Carl Amon had a small spike in CBAs this week, and had a big last quarter on the back of the extra time on ball. Is he a potential trade option? We've seen him average 95 with it's 25% CBAs. Talking about, I guess, his time at Port Adelaide. To be honest, like at Port Adelaide, yes, he did get some centre bounce attendances, but he went big in games where he wasn't getting centre bounces as well. Port played a way more fantasy-friendly role for wingers anyway, and we've seen that change this year because the wingers actually aren't scoring that well at Port this year. But yeah, I do so. While like we say you've seen the past and it could it should equate to this, that wasn't necessarily the case at Port. But that said, I think if he is playing more inside time at Hawthorn, he should score better because their wings are just always in no man's land. If you look at Harry Morrison as well, it's like not scoring as well as he was in previous times as well. But yeah, I just don't see him getting that much midfield time. Like, again, we've talked about Will Day's kind of moved into their number one midfielder. We've got Warple, we've got Nash who's playing really well. We've got Newcomb.
Yeah, there's a bit of a log jam in there. It just feels like you can't play everyone in the midfield. Yeah. There's only so many CBAs to get through.
I think it was probably more of a we're 100 points up. Let's just have a play around with some things and try some stuff. So, yeah, I do own Eamon, and he's been really disappointing this year. And like I turned the game off. So just before the end, I was watching the replay. But yeah, on the day, he was in no man's land. And then I looked at the score after the game. He had 90 points. So yeah, it was pretty nuts. But yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I just don't see if it's going to be happening long term. At JB wants to know an analysis of scoring by teams playing against West Coast and North Melbourne would be awesome. I've got this spreadsheet that calculates the last 3 weeks, and North Melbourne aren't that easy to really score against as a whole. Like a few of the top scorers go good against them, but given that we're playing keep leagues and we roll pretty deep, North are a very much middle of the road team to score against. They're not easy, not hard, really. They are hard. Well, they're more hard for midfielders. So midfielders actually aren't scoring that well against North. I don't know whether they're rolling out tags and things like that. That kind of stifles the scoring a bit. But as a whole, yeah, North aren't the best team to stream your midfielders against. West Coast, on the other hand, they're the easiest team for midfielders by a mile at the moment. So definitely play midfield against West Coast, and forwards really score well against them in fantasy too. So that's some trends. Other than that, they're still kind of middle of the road. Yeah, I don't know whether Gold Coast, for example, last week they didn't score that well against them. Maybe the teams take the foot off the gas a little bit because they're trying to work it out. Yeah, things like that can happen. I don't know. Last question of the night comes from Just Mitchell. Can we drop Taylor Adams and Kitty Coleman yet? What would you be doing? Would you drop Taylor Adams?
Oh, Adams just isn't getting the. He's just not putting up the numbers midfield this year. Yeah. And it's Mitchell. Tom Mitchell's really hurt him there.
Yeah.
To be honest, he's just not getting the weight of numbers that he used to. And yeah, Kitty Coleman I love, but would you say he's injured this?
Yeah, did a hamstring again, so I think he's out again. So I'll be holding Kitty Coleman.
I like Coleman, but I think Adams. Yeah. I can't see it being unless someone like Mitchell gets injured or something like that, and the role opens back up in the midfield. I just don't see him scoring
if you're
well.
Not contending for the flag, Taylor Adams is the type of guy you drop if there's a guy you really like on the waivers, because I reckon his fantasy days are done and dusted. Yeah. Kitty Coleman's still got plenty of time though. So
Adams is 29 now, and Mitchell's a bit younger than that. So the runs on the wall. I don't think there's probably only got a couple of years left. So but Coleman, it'll be good for a while now.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time, and Rich will probably retire at the end of the year as well, so that should be good for him there too. All right, that wraps it up. Thanks heaps, Tommy, for coming on the show. You're driving all the way from the Victor Harbour.
No problem. It's always a pleasure. No, it's good.
Anything you want to plug at the moment? Or?
Not really.
No, all right.
No, especially not my team.
That's for sure. All right, fair enough. We won't dive into that too much. Well, you can get around us on at Keep League Pod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Also, get around our sponsors, Game Day Squad. And if you want to support the podcast, please sign up as a member. Anyways, that'll do us for another week. Thanks once again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Stupid computer. Still hasn't stopped. Thanks, streamers.
No problems.
Take it easy.